This is a crucial question. And let me say in general, and then I'll give you a couple of quick examples. We are going to be very deliberate in terms of the measures we take to fight for Canada, fight against these unjustified measures by the U.S. administration, but also to protect, to have that minimal impact in Canada. Now, I'm going to use a specific example. Paul and I were discussing earlier today this great company, which produces a number of buses for the United States using, in many cases, U.S. components, and so the need for so-called remission orders around those, so that New Flyer remains competitive and all subsidy remains competitive. That's smart. That's smart from the Canadian perspective, and that's the kind of approach this government is taking. The second thing to say, though, is with respect to the auto sector. Given the current structure of U.S. auto tariffs, we have held back until we see the next measures from the U.S. tomorrow. We have held back. But we will not disadvantage Canadian producers and Canadian workers relative to American workers. So there are measures that we can take that at a minimum level the playing field with the United States. And again, it depends on the broader measures they take tomorrow, if indeed they do against Canada. Thank you.
What he's going to do on April the 2nd, as we've seen over a number of months, it's on again, off again. And he said he wasn't going to do it till April 2nd. Well, he launched an early attack, which is not surprising. But I've asked the Prime Minister to convene an FMM call as soon as possible, and recommended early next week, possibly Monday, and discuss this with the other premiers to make sure we take a Team Canada approach to this. But I can tell you, we just aren't going to roll over. We're going to retaliate, and he's going to feel the pain from the American people. We have two options here. We either roll over as a country, and he runs us over 15 times and gets what he wants, or we feel a little bit of pain, and we fight like we've never fought before.
And finally, I just want to wrap up by saying, in this really difficult time, when people are really worried about the attacks on our country from the United States, we're going to have an election with different approaches to domestic policies, and that is healthy and that is normal. You know, we're in it for people, and we're going to make that case. But when it comes to the way we approach Donald Trump, we need to have a common, united voice. No matter what the makeup of Parliament is, we need to send a clear message, all political leaders, that together, all of us denounce the illegal attacks on our country. All of us together want Canada to win. We want this trade war to end. We want these tariffs to be lifted. We want Canadian workers to win. We want Canadian workers to continue to be able to work in their jobs, in their fields. And so my message is, when it comes to the way we approach Donald Trump, let's send a unified message that we are all united in fighting back against Donald Trump. We are all united in fighting back against these illegal tariffs.
45 past the hour. New developments today in the intersection of Wall Street and Capitol Hill, where President Trump's expected new tariffs are rattling the financial markets and leading more members of Congress to grow concerned about the potential impact it could have on their constituents. Today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is set to meet with House Republicans this afternoon, as dozens of lawmakers are seeking exemptions to protect local industries in their home states. He's also huddling separately with GOP leaders and key committee chairs as they eye a massive tax, energy, and border security package. Joining us now, Jake Sherman, co-founder of Punchbowl News and an MSNBC political contributor. Jake, great seeing you. So how are this issue of tariffs and what we're going to be expecting tomorrow playing out on Capitol Hill?
With a thud, to be honest with you, Jose. I mean, this is going to be one of the most consequential decisions President Trump makes in his tenure. If he, and let's set the baseline. We don't really know what countries he's going to institute tariffs against. We don't know at what level, and we don't know for how long, and we don't know a lot. John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, told us yesterday he has no idea what exactly the president is going to do. But here's the reality that people are going to be facing. The market is expected. We don't know what markets do. They haven't. They're down on the year, but they're not down every single day. I mean, yesterday the Dow was up 1%. Markets are going to go lower, so 401ks and IRAs and other retirement plans are going to get thinner. Consumer confidence is dropping, and the price of goods is going to be higher. So if you are a president like Trump, who's not going to face voters ever again in his lifetime, that might be fine. If you're a House Republican who is, 500 something days ahead of an election at the end of 2026, that might be a more difficult thing for you to stomach. And so that's what they're going to be dealing with. And listen, this morning, Mike Johnson was asked about this, and he kind of said, listen, that's the president's prerogative. You have to trust the president on the economy. He created a great economy last time, and he'll do so again this time.
The term I like best probably is the liberation of America. It's the liberation of this country. So I think what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of days will be very inspiring to a lot of people.
President Trump sounding confident there that American consumers will be happy with the results of what he has promised will be a sweeping round of tariffs unveiled tomorrow. But economists and analysts aren't so sure, warning that what the president has called Liberation Day could actually be the start of a major new pain for consumers, with everything from car repairs to grocery shopping getting more expensive. And apparently, Wall Street doesn't like it either. Right now, you can see the markets are down ahead of the announcement. The Dow down around 1%, some 400 points right now. Joining us with more on this, NBC News White House correspondent Garrett Haake, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung, and Axios chief economic correspondent, I should say, Neil Irwin. Okay, Garrett, the president keeps calling tomorrow Liberation Day when these tariffs roll out. We're hearing reports Trump says he's settled on his plans. Do we know what that plan is?
The short answer, Anna, is that we don't. I mean, the president said yesterday he has settled on this plan, but he and his team have not been consistent in the way they've described exactly what might be included in these tariffs he's expected to roll out tomorrow, what might be exempted. We know that there are still companies and even foreign nations who are trying to negotiate with the White House as we speak to change their tariff rates or the products that might be included. The most recent way we've heard the president describe what he will announce tomorrow is like this.
They're reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind.
So what does he mean by nice? White House officials have said that there's essentially a way of looking at this where it's another country's tariffs plus, if they artificially depress their wages or manipulate their currency, if they have a VAT tax, all these things kind of go into a formula and out comes the result. But that won't be the actual result. If that's confusing, Anna, it's confusing, I think, to even the people working on it, and suggests that some of these final numbers may be a bit arbitrary and will be up to the president and the White House to defend. But as I can tell you, going back to the campaign, the president firmly believes in tariffs as kind of a Swiss Army knife tool to address almost any economic or diplomatic problem. And I think you're going to continue to see him defend their use long after this rollout tomorrow.
Oh, details. Garrett, thank you. Brian, we know the car industry is going to be bracing for impact. They already are bracing for impact. You're at a car dealership on Long Island. What's the situation there, and what are you hearing?
Yeah, well, again, what we were just talking about are those reciprocal tariffs that could impact nearly every industry. But of course, the auto tariffs that were announced last week, 25% on cars and car parts that are coming into this country, that will be majorly impactful for American households, where in many cases buying a car is a major part of their expense. And you have some estimates that the cost of a new car could spike between $5,000 to $10,000 depending on what you're buying. And we even got a separate warning from Goldman Sachs, a Wall Street bank, projecting that specifically foreign vehicles could increase by as much as $15,000. So here in Hempstead, New York, we were speaking with the general manager, Rebel Mejia, who runs this particular Honda dealership, asking about how he's engaged with his potential customers and potential car buyers over what could be an uncertain price that they might be paying. Take a listen.
Well, it's funny enough, like about 2 weeks ago, no mention of tariffs. Now I get calls, I deal with a lot of people, so I get calls like, hey, when can I come in before the prices go up? When do you anticipate that the prices are going to go up? So definitely a new language, a new thing that we're hearing is that one of the prices going up. And the only answer that we have is look, we're expecting the prices to go up after the second.
So not much of an answer there, and that's because he's as dialed into what the language in the executive order is as anybody else who's trying to figure out on Wall Street exactly what's going on here. Now, I do want to point out that experts are telling us it's not that you should expect car prices to go up by $10,000 or $15,000 effective Thursday of this week, but what they are worried about is that prices could start to gradually rise as car dealers go through their inventory. Here at this Millennium Honda, they say they have about 190 cars or so on the lot, which is about a month's worth of inventory. After they sell through that, any new cars that come from Honda that could be priced higher, those costs could get passed on to the consumer. They're saying this is a matter of weeks, not months, for when prices rise. Again, a major deal for a lot of American households that in many cases also choose to finance their vehicles. And as a reminder, interest rates are also relatively elevated on it.
And we know that American-made cars aren't necessarily safe from all of this either, with some of the parts coming from outside, some of the manufacturing happening outside the U.S. Neil, do we know what other key items might be impacted by these new tariffs?
Yeah, look, it depends on exactly how high these numbers are and on which countries. But look, a lot of U.S. agriculture is actually Mexican agriculture. A lot of avocados, tomatoes, all kinds of machine goods from China. A lot of manufactured goods on the shelves of your local Walmart are coming from China.
Donald continues to destroy his own country. And this is where Canada and Mexico and others have really put the screws to Trump. Because, again, they've taken this moment where Donald has tried to divide them and use it as a unifying call and yet parried it back on Trump, where he's dividing his own country. Again, we've talked about this, the irony of Trump calling this Liberation Day when what it's really doing is pissing off the world against the United States. Also, it's dividing Americans against each other, and it's causing a loss of confidence in the United States. Look, say what you will about Trump. For most of his first term, Americans were increasingly confident about the state of the economy. There's a chance he would have won again in 2020 if not for his handling of the crisis of the pandemic, right? He might have won again in 2020. Again, we don't have to give it to him. I think he was getting credit he didn't deserve, but the polling was showing confidence. It's not there anymore. And it's extra rich, it's extra ironic, guys, that he's calling it American Liberation Day as he openly threatens the sovereignty of allied nations. He's like, oh, this is going to be the day where we fight for freedom. Oh, also, we're threatening Mexico. We're going to invade them to fight them and get rid of crime inside their borders. We're going to annex Canada. We're going to annex Greenland. We're going to annex the Panama Canal again. Like all of this happening while he talks about liberation, right? Remember, this is where those Canada ads were really effective. I showed them to you. You've seen them on other channels. Canada purchasing ads in the United States on billboards, on bus stop signs and whatnot, saying that Donald Trump's tariffs are a tax on you. They make your gas, your groceries, your food, your entertainment, your cars, everything more expensive. So Canadians are united while Trump burns his own country to the ground.